Welcome to the first explainer on peptides by ONPEPS. ONPEPS is a peptide decision intelligence platform built for biohackers, researchers, and clinicians focused on peak performance and wellness. We turn fragmented clinical research, dosing data, and purity metrics into verifiable evidence, empowering you to confidently evaluate peptide safety, protocols, and vendor reliability.
So, ONPEPS is firmly rooted in peptide decision intelligence. Whether you're navigating general wellness culture, checking out new clinic offerings, or just scrolling through social media forums, our goal here is simple: provide you with verifiable evidence for your peak performance. We want to empower you with the exact science so you can confidently evaluate these compounds with absolute clarity.
All right, here's our scientific roadmap for today. We're covering 1. Precision signaling, 2. Tissue repair peptides, 3. Growth hormone peptides, 4. Neurological peptides, 5. Skin repair peptides, and finally, 6. The evidence gap. Let's get right into it.
Precision signaling. What peptides do that other drugs simply can't?
So, what exactly is a peptide? Think of them as short chains of amino acids, literally the exact same building blocks that make up proteins, but they act like highly precise, targeted signaling molecules in your body. Unlike broad, small molecule drugs like general antibiotics or blood thinners that just kind of go everywhere, peptides offer this incredible precision because they mimic naturally occurring processes. Now, most peptides are rapidly broken down by digestive enzymes, and you know what? That short half-life isn't a biological flaw at all. It's actually the whole reason they typically require specific injection protocols to work properly.
If we look at some of the top trending compounds today, BPC-157, TB500, Tesamorelin, PT-141, and GHK-CU, you can really see how their primary mechanisms differ. We're talking everything from tissue repair to copper-binding regenerative signaling. But here's the crucial part: their evidence strength and FDA approval status are highly uneven. We've got everything on the spectrum here, from fully FDA-approved drugs to compounds with, well, very limited human data. Moving on to Section 2, Tissue Repair Peptides, specifically BPC-157 and TB500.
There's a fascinating 2025 review about Josviak and colleagues that really hits the nail on the head. They note that BPC-157 shows pleiotropic beneficial effects across multiple preclinical models, but comprehensive clinical trial data in humans is absent. This perfectly bridges that gap between biological promise and pharmacological reality. You've probably heard BPC-157 called the Wolverine peptide, right? It has a wildly impressive preclinical record as a cytoprotective agent, showing improved blood vessel formation and massive gut healing in animals. But we have to balance that incredible optimism with clinical objectivity. The reality is, as of early 2026, fewer than 30 humans have actually been studied in published trials.
Now, let's clear up some major online confusion. TB500 is a synthetic fragment designed to regulate a protein called actin for localized tissue repair. Thymosin Beta-4, on the other hand, is the full-length 43 amino acid naturally occurring protein. Why does this matter? Well, a lot of those accelerated healing claims you read about online actually stem from broader research on the larger Thymosin Beta-4 molecule, not TB500 specifically. They are not chemically identical, folks, so we absolutely cannot just automatically apply findings from one directly to the other.
All right, Section 3, Growth hormone peptides. Let's talk about ipamorelin and tesamorelin.
Let's look at ipamorelin first. This is a highly selective secretagogue. In biological terms, that means it triggers a really nice acute pulse of your body's own natural growth hormone. But the best part? It beautifully avoids spiking cortisol or prolactin levels, so it doesn't suppress your HPA axis. This brilliantly illustrates why it's so frequently stacked with CJC-129. Ipamorelin gives you that immediate pulse, and then the longer half-life of CJC-129 extends the baseline elevation of that exact same pulse. It's basically engineered synergy.
Now contrast that with tesamorelin. Tesamorelin has a super robust, verified clinical reality. We're talking 816 patients involved in large-scale Phase 3 clinical trials. It's actually fully FDA-approved for reducing excess visceral abdominal fat, specifically for HIV-associated lipodystrophy. I know a lot of people talk about it for general fat loss online, but that specific HIV application is where the absolute strongest, undisputed clinical evidence actually lives.
Next up, Section 4, Neurological peptides. Let's focus on PT-141.
So, PT-141, also known as bremelanotide, This one is really unique because it successfully navigates the MC3R and MC4R melanocortin pathways right in the brain to control sexual motivation and arousal. It's actually an FDA-approved treatment for premenopausal hypoactive sexual desire disorder, and we often see it used off-label for men who just don't respond to standard medications. However, keeping our clinical objectivity here means we have to acknowledge real-world usage. Nausea occurs in up to 40% of subjects at standard doses, along with potential flushing and transient blood pressure elevation. It's a powerful tool for sure, but it's not without its side effects.
Moving on to Section 5, Skin Repair Peptides, specifically looking at GHK-CU.
As we age, there's a natural, measurable decline of GHK copper in our blood plasma. At age 20, your natural levels are sitting pretty at roughly 200 nanograms per milliliter, but by age 60, they plummet to just 80. Looking at this data, it's totally clear why so many people seek out GHK copper for anti-aging. They're simply trying to replenish this powerful, natural biological repair signal that just naturally fades over time.
But here is a critical distinction you absolutely need to understand. Topical GHK-CU facial creams are backed by robust, large-scale human trials showing measurable improvements in skin density, collagen synthesis, and even reducing wrinkle depth. But systemic, injectable GHK-CU, that is a very different story. The moment we start talking about systemic injections, there's a huge lack of clinical trial data. Plus, it carries theoretical risks of copper accumulation if you dose it improperly. So the evidence is incredibly strong for topical use, but very, very limited for injections.
Which brings us to our final part. Section 6, the evidence gap and practical takeaways.
If we look at the timeline over the past decade, we've seen years of animal data accumulation, tons of preclinical research showing immense potential. But today, we're seeing this massive gray market popularity where the biological promise is vastly outpacing actual human clinical trials. And looking ahead to July 2026, we have the FDA Pharmacy Compounding Advisory Committee hearings coming up. This is a massive milestone, guys, because it will officially determine if BPC-157 and other Category 2 peptides can legally be produced by compounding pharmacies moving forward.
So the crucial point is, how do you practically and safely navigate these protocols right now? Here's your actionable intelligence. First, peptides must be reconstituted with bacteriostatic water to remain sterile for 14 to 28 days in the fridge. Always remember that lyophilized or freeze-dried forms offer much better long-term stability compared to premixed liquids. Also, most protocols require cycling on and off. You have to do this to prevent continuous exposure from desensitizing your surface receptors. And critically, recognize that buying things labeled research use only completely bypasses FDA oversight. It totally lacks the guaranteed purity and sterility you'd get from regulated compounding prescriptions.
I want to leave you with a final, provocative thought. How will you align your wellness protocols with verifiable clinical evidence? The science here is absolutely promising, but as we've seen today, it really requires careful, objective, and informed navigation. Thanks for listening. Subscribe to ONPEPS on YouTube and Spotify, where we upload episodes every week.